Okay, so what we're going to do, I'll charge you when you're ready. Just
Hi, I'm Noah Switzer. I'm 88 years old and I live in Taylor Mill, and I'm a World War II veteran. I bought this old place above me here about a half a block in 1954, and when my mother passed away in 78, my dad moved in with us. He got pretty sick in 1995 and always wanted to go home. And I kept telling him he was home, but he wouldn't listen to me. He passed away in March of 1996, and I miss him. My wife died 2 years ago in February, and I sorely miss her. We were living in a trailer over in West Covington, and when we pulled into the driveway up here in 1954, my wife and I simultaneously said, "This is the one I want," because it was out in the country then. So after we moved in here, we had our two oldest sons, Robert and Frederick. Becky came along while we lived here. I went to work for the Foy, F-O-Y, paint company, and they transferred me to Terre Haute, Indiana for about 8 years. I had 21 stores in Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Kentucky. And I left them 1970 and was put on a debit by the Western and Southern Life Insurance Company of Cincinnati. And it's a good thing I left when I did, because in about 2 years, all Foy paint companies were given a pink slip and not told not to come back to work on Monday because they didn't have a job.
Oh, wow. Now, let's talk a little bit about your early childhood. You were born down in Scott County, is that right?
Yes.
And you lived on your grandfather's farm?
I was born
Born.
on my grandfather's farm.
I see.
My mother and my dad, when they got married, my mother was 15 years old, her birthday, and I was born before she turned 16.
I see.
And it was maybe 5 years that I lived with my other grandmother over in Harrison County until Dad got a job with the C&O Railroad. Oh. And he rented a house down here, and that's when I came down, and I didn't know what my first name was until I started at school. The teacher asked me what my name was, and my mother told the teacher my name was Noah, because I was always known as Little Bob after my grandpa Switzer.
Right.
That was Isaac Robert, and they called him Big Bob.
Big Bob and Little Bob.
Big Bob and Little Bob. And any time that school was out, even starting at the 2nd or 3rd grade, I would get on a truck at 6th and Main and go to the lane that went over to my grandfather's farm, which was maybe a mile and a half, and I'd walk into the lane, go on over there, and they were always glad to see me.
Tickled to death to see you.
Grandma always had a chocolate pie baked for me.
So you spent your summers down there,
I spent all
and then
my
eventually you lived up here. Did you have jobs up here when you stopped going down there in the summer? Never had a job till you got to the service.
Nope.
Well?
No, because I went into the service 9 days after my 17th birthday. I stacked my books, walked out of Holmes High School. And I backed up from 2 buses, and I thought to myself, if I'm going to go, like it says in one of these articles here, I'm going to get on the next bus and go. And I did.
Well, it was probably a good choice in your life. Where you were signed up in Cincinnati, and you got into a little bit of a squabble with the recruiter because you wondered why your initials were on everything he had on his desk. Go ahead, for the benefit, tell them what your initials are and what that stands for as far as the government is concerned.
All of the papers that they were filling out for me had NRS, Cincinnati, Ohio. And there was a Navy lieutenant there, and I asked him why he was putting my initials on all my papers in front of Cincinnati, Ohio. And he informed me that that was not my initials. And I told him, I said, well, if you get smart with me, I'll go across the hall and join the Army. He turned around and went down in his office for about 6 or 7 minutes and came back. He apologized and said, Switzer, I'm sorry, that is your initials, but in front of Cincinnati, Ohio, that's Navy recruiting station. My name is Noah R. Switzer, NRS.
Naval Recruiting Station.
But I had to go down to the 4th and John in Cincinnati and get my dad off of the railroad property to come up and sign for me to get into the Navy. And he asked him there, he said, will he be home tonight? The man said, he's on his way to Great Lakes. And it was a mild day here in Cincinnati, and when we got to the lakes, the snow was about knee deep, and the wind off of the lake was like razor blades. And they run us about 2 blocks down to a huge Quonset hut, gave us a pea coat and a stretch over cap, and said, that's all you get for the night. They're going to put you on a bus and take you over to your barracks. So I was here
And what year was that?
February the 2nd, 1943.
And World War II had already been going for a while, but there was a great feeling of patriotism, and that's why you joined.
13 months. The war was about 13 months
13
old.
months old?
Yeah.
Okay. So at Great Lakes, how long was basic training?
Basic training, boot camp was approximately 13 weeks.
Yeah. Now I know that there's a lot of guys didn't know how to swim when they go in the Navy, but they learn pretty quick, don't they? Don't they use kind of a
We had to jump in.
primitive way of...
I don't remember for sure, but I think I pulled out 2 or 3 of them.
Uh-huh.
Because I always jumped in the lake or in the Licking River down around Cynthiana, Kentucky, or somewhere. If there was a big pond, I'd jump in.
Yeah.
In the summertime, that is, not in the winter.
Right. I understand that. The good thing about you going up to Great Lakes, other than the weather, you meet a lot of people real quick and you learn a skill. And in basic training, survival, I think, is that skill. But after basic training, what was your training? What were you going to be?
I transferred over to the other side of Great Lakes to Hospital Corps School.
I see.
I was there about 12 weeks and was transferred to the Portsmouth Naval Hospital. A few days before Christmas, they had a notice on the bulletin board down at Portsmouth that anyone who was interested in getting into the Paramarines, that was jumping out of an airplane with a parachute on, sign here. Well, Dave had already signed it, and he got a hold of me, and he says, here, sign this. I said, what is it? He said, we're going out to California to learn how to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. So I signed. After flight physical and everything, they transferred us to Camp Elliott, California. We were supposed to go to Camp Gillespie for parachute training, but all of the Marine paratroopers had been brought back to San Diego. Most of those men got a stripe or 2 and was transferred to Camp Pendleton. They were forming up the 5th Marine Division.
I see.
When we completed Hospital Corps School at San Diego, that's where we ended up. And I was transferred into the 5th Marine Division Hospital. That's where I ran into John Bradley. He was one of the guys that put the flag up on Mount Suribachi. And I got acquainted with John, I guess for maybe a few days until they started transferring us out to different companies.
Uh-huh.
I think he ended up in the 2nd Battalion. I ended up in the 3rd Battalion with I Company, with 6 other Navy hospital corpsmen. Each corpsman was attached to a different platoon. Well, I drew the machine gun platoon. In January 1945, they put us on a ship from Hawaii, and we didn't have the foggiest idea where we were going. When we were out to sea for a couple of weeks, they told us that we were going to take a little island called Iwo Jima.
And you'd never heard of Iwo Jima, as most people had not at that time. But
Nobody knew where it was at.
It was a hotbed of Japanese infiltration, and it was critical that the United States have possession of that island, because it was one of those pit stops, sort of, because they knew that there was going to be an invasion at some point. So, but they had to have some kind of control
Well,
of the sea.
they wanted it for the airport because there was a lot of B-29s coming back from Japan, shot up. They had ditch in the ocean.
Uh-huh.
And after about 15 days on Iwo Jima, I saw a B-29 come in and land.
So the Corps of Engineers got there at some point, or was there already an airfield there that the Japanese had built? There was already.
After we secured the island enough, they had CBs and Army what do you call this?
Army
Construction
engineer guys,
battalion
construction, yeah.
right there, and they were stretching it out. And it wasn't but just a day or two till one B-29 came in and landed there. And they claimed that the lives saved from the Air Force paid for the 6,000 men we buried on Iwo Jima. Marines and Navy Hospital.
Yeah. Being a corpsman, a lot of people don't understand that you join the Navy, and if you're winding up a corpsman, you're going to be in the Marine Corps, pretty much. And that's something that I think that you need to be. We're proud that you served in that. I know you're very proud of your military service. How long were you on Iwo Jima?
36 days.
Only 36 days?
36 days.
Pretty tough days, though, weren't they?
Over 18,000 wounded
Yes.
that was evacuated, and there's 6,000, I don't remember for sure whether it was 6,280 or 6,800 or two.
A great number of people.
But it was over 6,000 men that was buried on Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of the cemetery here that my mother cut out of the paper back years ago. I'm not positive, it might be in here.
Now, was your mother aware of where you were when you wound up in Iwo Jima, or I know they cut a lot of messages out
I
of.
don't think she did for the first maybe 10 or 12 days.
Yeah.
But they came to the right conclusion. And they knew where I was at then.
So, how long were you in the service after you left Iwo Jima? You wound up somewhere else?
Iwo Jima was 45 in February. I got a battleship discharge in January of 47. Joined the Naval Reserves till October of 1950. Got recalled to active duty during that Korean thing, but I didn't have to go overseas.
I see.
I ended up at the Norfolk Naval Air Station at the dispensary. And most of my duties there was checking in all medical equipment, all medications, and putting tags on it, all of the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And Captain Smith, who was the senior medical officer on the Franklin when it was blown to pieces over around Okinawa.
Yes.
He had been promoted to a captain, and he wanted me to re-enlist. But my wife gave him a great big no.
Yeah. Well, you'd done a tour in the States as a Navy corpsman. Then you wound up on the ship, and then you wound up at Iwo Jima.
I was never on a ship as ship's company. I was on a troop transport.
Okay, I see. Now, see, I've made the
several of them.
mistake. I was on a troop transport once too. It's not a picnic. But I've made the mistake of asking Navy guys, so what kind of boat were you on? And they all say, wait a minute now, a boat you can put on top of a ship.
Yeah,
So the distinction is most Navy guys know about ships.
that's right.
So anyhow, after you got reactivated for the Korean conflict, and how long was that duration of your service?
I was recalled in October of 1950 and discharged on the 23rd of January 1952. That was the end of my military.
Well,
Except for my youngsters. I had a couple of youngsters that went into the Army later on in life. But I came back home. I was transferred from Japan on occupation duty over to Tianjin, China, 5th Division, 2nd Division, 1st Division. And most people, I tell them I was attached to 3 Marine divisions, and they say, huh? I didn't think there was that many divisions in the Marine Corps.
yeah. And the Marine Corps measures their companies differently than the Army, I think. You go as high as I or J, right? A, B, C, D through J of companies?
GHI.
I. And most of the time, the Army companies only go A, B, C, D, and headquarters.
Back in World War II,
They had a lot
were
more?
basically the same, I
I
think.
see. And it could very well have
I
been.
never was familiar with Army rules and regulations.
Well, you were in the Navy.
Yeah.
You were riding the waves.
Yeah.
So after you were released from the service again after the Korean conflict, is that when you got your job with the Foy Paint Company, or did you have other jobs?
I had several other jobs.
Okay, and you were raising your family.
When I left February of 1943 and went into the Navy, I was working for, no, I wasn't either, I'm sorry. I wasn't
quit high
working,
school.
I just got up out of high school and
Right.
walked out.
Yeah.
Jumped on a bus and went over there, and when I came back home, I went to work for the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company in January of 43, 47, I'm sorry, 48, 49, 50. I was transferred from 6th and Monmouth in Newport, which was a Goodyear service store, and now it's gone.
All right.
It's down on 4th Street. I was transferred to 9th and Race in Cincinnati. That's where I was recalled to active duty. And when I got out of my second hitch, they discharged me. I came right back and had my job.
Yeah.
And Goodyear sent me down to North Carolina through budget training school. And in 52, I was transferred to New Albany, Indiana as credit manager.
I see.
Eisenhower was elected president in 1954, I believe.
52.
52. Well, the country went into a recession and I lost my job. Came back to Covington, Kentucky, and the next day I had 2 jobs. So I went to work for Dick Ostendorf service station at 5th and Main in Covington. I was only with him for several months, 6 or 7 months, and I transferred up to the B.F. Goodrich store at 7th and Washington. And then I got wind of a credit manager's job over in Cincinnati and went and applied for the job, and I got it.
And that was at Foy Paint?
That was
Oh.
Al Pressman
I
at
see.
9th and Race.
Ah.
I was there for 2 years, 1955 and 1956. In January of 1957, I went to work for the Foy Paint Company because they were looking for a field auditor. I went out there and worked, I was trained by a couple of men that worked for the Foy Paint Company for about 8 months, and they transferred me to Terre Haute, Indiana. That's where my youngest son was born.
So your family just naturally, whenever you got moved, the
They
whole
just
family,
went right along.
and you still had this property here. Is that an
No, I
accurate?
sold this.
You sold this
I sold this.
up there, and then you bought it back later on.
I bought it back in 1966. My dad and my uncle worked on the place for a solid year, putting new windows in, putting all new plumbing, cleaning out the furnace, and putting a motor on the conveyor that shot the stoker coal into it. And when I ran out of money because I was renting a house that was bigger than my pocketbook down in Jeffersontown, Kentucky. And I borrowed my dad's truck and rented a U-Haul trailer, made 7 truckloads and trailer loads to get my furniture and everything back up here. And I was here for about 3 months, and Foy Paint Company told me they wanted me to move back to Covington.
Oh.
I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, here's my new address." And I gave my boss a card, and he looked at it. He says, "You live in Covington?" I said, "Yes, sir." So he said, "Okay." He says, "How much did it cost you to move?" I said, "I don't know, maybe 75 or 80 bucks." So they gave me a check to cover my gasoline.
Well, good.
And I got my children in school in time. We moved back here in August. Got my children in school in September. And I worked for the Foy Paint Company until 1970, and I resigned, went to work for Western Southern, and retired from there.
I see. And you were a insurance debit collector for Western Southern.
Collector, sales, service, whatever.
Yeah. Now, how many children did you have, you and your wife?
Our first baby was born in 48. He was stillborn. Robert was born in 1950 at St. Elizabeth down here in Covington on Eastern Avenue. Rick was born three years later, 1953, in New Albany, Indiana. Becky was born in 1956 56 in Cincinnati, Christ Hospital, because the man that I was working for that year, his brother was a doctor and he gave me a break on the delivery and everything.
Good.
John was born in New Albany, Terre Haute, Indiana in 1959, and he was the caboose.
I see. Now, I think you told me in one of our conversations that you have a connection to John Hunt Morgan. Is that accurate, or is this in my mind?
As close as I can find out, and I've got 2 or 3 records of it, one of my grandpas, by the name of Kidwell, married Henrietta Morgan.
Oh.
And the only connection I can really find is that John Hunt Morgan's mother was Henrietta Morgan. But this Henrietta Morgan that married into the Kidwell family was his sister.
Well, that's kind of a common thing that sometimes children are named after an aunt or an uncle. Very possible.
Mother, Dad.
Yeah, and
Grandpa.
as historians we find out that the oldest son sometimes is named after a brother of the father. And that gets things kind of confusing because you have to kind of figure the year or the time span when you're talking about a certain John Smith or a Mary Smith. And sometimes they name 2 or 3 of their children with a middle name, the same middle name as the father or the mother, depending. So your children, or none of them are named after you, though.
Robert.
There's only one. Oh, you're Robert. That's true, Robert.
My middle name.
I was kind of going on the Noah part, but you're.
Noah Robert Switzer.
I see.
And my oldest son was Robert Lee.
I see.
And the next one, my wife was going to a doctor by the name of Frederick Allen. Well, she was wanting a girl, and Rick came along, so she named him Frederick Allen Switzer after the doctor,
I see.
because he was a prince.
I see. Well, and I think everybody is named after somebody, but the fact that named after the doctor, that's probably not uncommon.
No.
I know that I've heard my mother-in-law say that she was very happy that the person that delivered her, she said, if the first 2 had been boys, one of them would have been named after the doctor that delivered her girls. So you eventually had a girl, and then she was named after an aunt or just a name you liked.
Rebecca Sue.
I see.
My dad was John Robert. My youngest son is John Alfred after his 2 grandfathers. Because my wife's name was Brown before we got married, and she was from Ironton, Ohio. I wrote to a young lady for 4 years while I was in the Navy.
Uh-huh.
Marriage was mentioned several times. But when I got home, she told me she wasn't ready to get married, and she didn't think she was going to marry me. So I took off. And I got a song here, if you got a little bit of time
We'll have
afterwards.
time here.
I want you to listen to just a few words of it, because I can't stay away from it.
I understand.
And I don't know, I've lived up here basically since 1954 on this hillside. And there was a old couple and his brother lived out here by the name of Nishke. And there's just a little bit over 5 acres in this tract. But they started out, they had 16 acres, and they used to grow crops and take them down into Latonia on a wagon and peddle corn, tomatoes, potatoes.
Truck
They had a
gardening.
huge garden on top of this hill till they sold 5 acres off to the Ashland Oil Company, because they wanted to build a tower so they could keep in touch with their boats up and down the river from here.
Now, see, that's something that I guess most of us don't comprehend, why somebody would take good farmland to put a tower on it, but Ashland's a pretty big company, and you don't think about all that traffic going up and down the river that they need to monitor.
Yeah.
You've had a good life here. It's a very comfortable home, and I know that you've worked hard in your life. Is there any advice you would like to give the young folks out there that may see this at some point, as far as your military career or your philosophy in life?
Well, I started out when I was 21, and I worked for about 43 or 44 years. I never drew one penny from unemployment because I always had a job, because I went and looked for them, and I found them. And I don't know, we got married, she was 17 years old, we were married 64 and a half years, and we never had a real good fight.
Well, that's quite an accomplishment, just to be with a partner 64 years. I don't know about the fighting part. Most of the time when married folks live that long together, they probably never had a real fight.
That's right.
Maybe a few minor disagreements, but the fact that you worked hard speaks to itself. You went out looking for a job, and I think a lot of times if people will actually make the effort, they can improve their life a little bit. And you've done very well with this.
Yes, sir.
I know you've got some memorabilia and some pictures. There's a very nice article here, and I'm going to ask you to hold this up and make a little explanation about the fellow sitting there that was on Mount
All right.
Subiachi.
There was a man that came over here from the Inside magazine.
That didn't sink or anything like that, and it came in sections about 12 feet long, I think, and 10 feet wide, and they hooked together like Tinker Toys.
Yep.
They just clipped together, and they had all these holes in it, and that's why it was called perforated steel plate. The holes were about 6 inches, and that made it a little bit lighter, but it still gave it stability. And
that's
it's
right.
amazing how quick they could put an airfield in.
I never did see any of it, but I know that once the area north of that first airfield was more or less secured, there was a lot of those men that were killed by snipers
Yes.
that was doing that work.
And I understand too that there were people, the Japanese were still in holes and whatever on that island. So every
Caves.
once in a while there'd be a
There was caves from
patrol
one end
go
to the
out,
other.
and they'd look around and the last guy wasn't there. He had been snatched away from his company or his platoon or whatever it was. And sometimes they didn't find that serviceman for 6 or 8 weeks.
Got these two medals about 60 years too late. One was for my occupation time in Japan, which was with the 5th Marine Division from September of 1945, 29 days after the Japanese surrendered, until they sent the 5th Division home and transferred me to the 2nd Division. Then they sent the 2nd Division home out from underneath of me and sent me to Tientsin, China, and that medal there is for my China service, my China occupation.
Now, did you go to Japan
Yeah,
and you occupied Japan for a while till you went to China?
yeah. We were in Japan within 1 month after the Japanese surrendered.
Well, I know that there were a lot of folks at the duration of the war, when they signed on, some people got drafted as early as 1940.
My uncle.
And when the war broke out, at that time their draft enlistment was like 2 years. But when the war broke out, they were there till the duration.
Duration.
And sometimes these folks didn't get technically a leave. They may have had a day off somewhere away from where people were doing their best to try to kill them, but they did not get a leave per se for 5 or 6 years. You were pretty fortunate when your service in Japan and China. Were you allowed any freedom to tour those countries, or kind of?
Not too much in China. We were more or less assigned to Tientsin, China, and just a small area where our I can't even remember whether they had a name on the camp or what, but there was about 750 or 800 Marines there. And when they told us we had to inoculate them against Japanese B encephalitis, none of these other hospital corpsmen wanted to give them the shots.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them, I said, keep the material coming and I'll shoot them. And I jabbed about 700 Marines in one day.
Wow.
And then when it became my turn to get my shot, I got a hold of a little corpsman by the name of Edward Patch. And I could hold my arm out like that and he could walk under. And he said, no. He said, Noah, I don't want to give you your shot. Get somebody else. I said, Eddie, come here. I said, do it. All right. And I'll tell you, my arm was sore for 3 days, and those big Marines would take 2 or 3 steps and caught by 3 or 4 other men and took to a bunk and they'd pass out. That shot was ferocious.
Well, I know that sometimes people don't understand that the military do a lot of things to protect their own.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to get a little off of the subject of your career, and I'm going to talk about 8 seconds about the Panama Canal. That people did not realize it was a corpsman who actually seemed to get that thing through where the engineers and the Army could not. The reason being he understood malaria and yellow fever, and he convinced his superiors, we need to inoculate these guys and we need to eliminate. So as a corpsman, there's another place that you can take some pride. It's not necessarily the generals that solve all the problems of the world. I've got this poster here and I'm going to hold it up. This is for the 24th of February 2013, and it's at the cemetery, or at the VFW post in Flemingsburg, Kentucky. Now, I'm assuming that it's always on like the 3rd weekend of February where their celebration is.
It's on a Sunday, closest to February the 23rd, because February the 23rd was when the flag went up.
Right.
And if the 22nd or 21st or the 24th or the 25th, so right in there, if it's Sunday, that's when they have it.
Yeah. And I know that you're the last corpsman that was on that island.
No, I wasn't the last one on there.
What I'm saying is you're the last one living.
I'm the last one of Company I.
Company I. I stand corrected. So what I would like to suggest, if anybody has the opportunity to go down to Flemingsburg, Kentucky, and it's on Mount Sterling Road, for the benefit of, the name of the cemetery is Elizabethville or Elizaville. Do you know the pronunciation? Elizaville, Kentucky Cemetery. And it would certainly be well worth your time and effort to visit this ceremony and go from there.
I told a lot of people the same thing. Here's the article on the last hospital corpsman of Company I. Now, we were not the last company to leave there, but we weren't the first company to leave either, because we went in on the southeast end on Green Beach and went around the base of Mount Suribachi fighting the Japanese day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week while we were there on the island. And then once we got through our rest area, after the flags were raised up, they put us in the lines, and we went all the way to the north end of the island.
Now I know that the mortars firing continuously around you and the air support, it affected your hearing, obviously. I think that's the problem with a lot of military guys.
Yeah.
But I think most of them feel it's a small sacrifice to give up a little bit of your hearing for the benefit of...
And a lot better than being shot.
Well, that's true.
At least I got to come home and I got a big welcome. My mother hugged me, kissed me, and said, "I'm glad you're home safe, son."
So was your grandmother still alive? Was she still
No.
baking chocolate pies by
No.
then? No.
No. Well, yes, my grandma Switzer was still alive when I got home, because she died in 1955 at the age of 94, I believe. But in September of 44, my grandma McKinney passed away, and I got a 10-day leave from Camp Pendleton and got home for a few days.
Well, that's great.
I'd go out at nighttime with a Navy white uniform or a Marine Corps khaki uniform. The next day when the sun was shining, I'd wear my dress blues or my Marine Corps green uniform. People would ask me, what outfit are you in? They didn't,
Yeah.
they were confused.
Yeah, and see, that's something that a lot of people don't understand about the Navy being with the Marine Corps. And the fact that 4 different uniforms. I've spoke to people who joined the Marines because they like the looks of that dress blue with the stripe down the
Dress
leg.
blue uniform.
And I'm going to go back to when you were at Camp Pendleton and also California. Did you go to across the border from San Diego?
No, I had no desire to go to Mexico.
Well, sometimes a lot of young fellows in the Marine Corps or the Navy go across there and then they wind up realizing that was not such a good idea.
There was
They
a lot of
they
them.
might have to go before the captain when they come back.
A lot of them up there at San Diego and Camp Pendleton that made weekend trips down to Mexico.
Yeah. It was just the idea that you're in the military and a lot of people have never been away from home. And it seemed like an enticing thing. But when the captain has your personal attention after you've come back, you know that you were not the best of citizens. Yeah. So anyhow, I want to thank you for your service, and especially thank you for being able to allow us to relive some of the time that you were on Iwo Jima. This is something, as you said, very few people know a veteran that has survived Iwo Jima, and especially in your capacity as a corpsman, the amount of care and things that you gave to other people. So I personally appreciate your service, and I thank you for the benefit that you did for the entire United States, Mr. Switzer,
You're
Noah.
welcome. I almost bought one of these about 6 months ago.
Uh-huh.
Well, January the 24th was my birthday, but the retired bird colonel that was going to give it to me couldn't make it. He had to be somewhere else. So on February the 28th, when we had our next meeting down at the VFW, he brought that in to me.
Wow.
And he told me, he says, don't leave, I got something for you. So I found out that the whole post was involved on it. And
Well,
I was Grand Marshal of the parade in Covington last year.
Well, that's quite an honor in itself.
Yeah, I want to show you something here. You can't, I doubt if you can see it there, but NRS Cincinnati, Ohio. That is my original recruit identification card that they gave me in Cincinnati. It's been altered because now I'm a pharmacist mate, I think pharmacist mate?
Third class.
Third class.
Yeah.
And they stuck a picture on the corner covering up 1943. And here's a picture of that thing there. I had to hold it. And when I got out of service, I went down to Covington to get driver's license, and she asked me, she said, do you have any kind of driver's license? And I showed her my
Your military driver's
1944
license?
military. So they typed up my driver's license and put them in the case, threw them down, said, that's $1, please. Because it was $1 a year back then.
Yeah. Now, are you a fisherman? Hunter, fisherman?
Not much.
Never did?
Not much. I go every once in a while.
Well, I was going to say, you've reached that age now that you can
Yeah.
get a free hunting and fishing license. It's better than $1, but
I got 2 of them
no good for you.
because I thought I had lost my original. So I went and applied for a new one. They gave me another one, so I got 2 of them.
Well, you can catch twice as many fish.
It's 2:20. I have to get ready to go to work.
We're going to be leaving
They're
shortly.
about finished, Becky. It's my daughter, Becky.
Becky, we're glad to meet you.
I've been trying to keep the dog quiet.
Well, don't worry about that. You were going to say, I was going to sit here and hold it and rub its neck, but
she
probably-
won't let anybody do
no,
that
that's
with
what I was
Daddy.
afraid of. Thank you for that.
Uh,
You've got a lot of treasures. Actually, I'm going to have to leave pretty soon myself too, but if we can maybe get some more pictures here of some of these, and we'll hold them up
that picture was taken in 1951 when I was home on leave. The one next to it was taken last year.
As the Grand Marshal. Is that the same
Grand
uniform?
No.
Okay. Just checking because my uniform
Little
shrank.
difference between 123 pounds and 156.
Yes, that's why I say mine shrank. My military uniform shrank. Okay, I'm going to thumb through here again. Now, who are these? Who's the Army guy in the picture here? Now, I know this is the 7th cab or 1st cab.
That's my oldest son, Robert.
Okay, Robert. And these are all your children?
And this is my son, John.
Okay.
And let's see, this guy here's my grandson. Now the head sticking up there is Rick, and he's got a element missing in his blood coagulating system. They wouldn't take him.
Oh.
Or either he was right in between a war and didn't be called, wasn't called or something. I don't really know. Because he said he was glad he didn't have to go into the military.
Well, you know, I think you have quite a collection of family members here in the military. Everyone can't say that.
That's right.
Michael was in the military, Daddy.
Now, I got acquainted with Spike Jones, Chief of Police in Covington, and this guy was from Channel 9 and shot that, and I spelled my name for him 2 or 3 times,
And he still got it
showed
wrong, huh?
They showed it up on the screen, SCHWEITZER.
And I know that you had explained that to me one time, that one of your great-grandfathers took a couple of them letters out, didn't think it was necessary.
Repli Japan.
All right, here's a picture
And I
of Japan.
I was the senior medical officer of Company G when we were out there.
Okay. Well, once again, I want to thank you for your service.